introduce yourself and tell us how you first got involved with the Monroe Mandolin Camp.
Okay, my name is Alan Munde. I'm a banjo player, and the first time I came to Monroe Mandolin Camp, I don't know what year it was, either the year, I can't remember, or where the mandolin camp was in its history. But I've been here 3 times, so this is the 3rd time, and if there's 2, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago was the first one. And at that time, they were at Lake Junaluska, as we are now. And then the second time I was invited, we were at a facility in Abington, Virginia. So this is be my 3rd time here, and how I got involved, I assume would be through just my career being known as a banjo player and an educator, I'll call myself. Heidi, who is the director, and Mike Compton, who at the time was, I think it was actually called Mike Compton's Monroe Mandolin Camp, I thought. But anyway, Mike, I had known Mike for many years, and probably they only use one banjo instructor, which is kind of different for me because I do a lot of banjo camps, so there's be a lot of banjo instructors, and they would have one mandolin teacher and one guitar and one bass and so on. And so I'm the reverse of that now. I'm at a mandolin camp, and I'm the only banjo instructor that I'm aware of anyway, so it's kind of a different deal. So jam sessions are going to be 10 mandolins and 1 banjo if I'm involved. So
Yeah, you won't have trouble keeping track of the 2 and the 4, right?
no. Let's see.
Do you?
Just the mandolin will kick it off, then the mandolin will take the first solo, and then the mandolin will take the 3rd solo, and then me, and then another mandolin. So it'll be easy to arrange it.
Do you approach teaching differently being at a mandolin camp than at one of your banjo camps?
Well, not really, because they're banjo players sitting in front of me. And whether they're mandolin players wanting to learn a little bit about the banjo or whatever, it's still the banjo and it's still the same stuff. So, but being at Monroe, I might take a little different tact and talk more about Monroe's banjo players, which is easy to do. He's had many good ones.
What was your first exposure to kind of Bill Monroe and then kind of the Scruggs era with Bill Monroe banjo?
Well, I started the guitar when I was about 14 and played for a year or so, and then discovered the banjo and have been in it ever since. But my entry was through Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, of course, Earl Scruggs. And so you get into Flatt and Scruggs and you find out that Scruggs had been with Monroe earlier. So back in my era, there were record stores, but there were also records sold at, I'll call them 5 and dimes, budget label stuff. And so I would look for records that had the word bluegrass on it anywhere that had records. And I found a number of. It's kind of interesting, what I found of Bill Monroe first was not his contemporary recordings, but his very early recordings, because those are the ones that were at the cutout bins. So they had Earl Scruggs on them, so that was how I sort of discovered Bill Monroe, and then certainly knew his name, and tried to find out as much about the music and find people who knew how to play and talk to them about what records they had and what songs they wanted to do. Many of them were Bill Monroe songs, so I'd want those recordings so I could hear how they went, so to speak.
What makes sort of that era of music, kind of traditional bluegrass and the music of Bill Monroe, what makes it unique?
Well, sort of the unique or special part, I guess, for me, early bluegrass is just sort of the genuineness of it. You take Bill Monroe and the Flatt and Scruggs, Chubby Wise era. they didn't have the models that we had. They were actually creating a new flavor of ice cream all on their own, and so when they did things, they weren't necessarily imitating anybody. Earl Scruggs didn't play what he did because he had heard Earl Scruggs records, and was copying that like, the later generations were, he did it because he thought it made good music. Where I did it, it was because he did it and it made good music. But there's a difference in that, the intent of that and the attitude of that is different. And for them, they were doing it also for a living, and they didn't want to starve. So they did it with great intensity and determination to play it as well as they could and to work very, very hard at it. As I read the history of bluegrass music, the Flatt and Scruggs Bill Monroe band rehearsed a lot. And because they wanted to do it, they wanted to be spectacular, I'll say. And they wanted to thrill the people enough to where they would reach down in their pockets and give them money. And so that's a real magic trick. I'm going to play some music and you're going to reach in your pocket and give me some money. So I've been working on that trick ever since.
It's a good one. You were talking about, Earl Scruggs wasn't trying to learn to sound like Earl Scruggs. How do you teach students on banjo or any instrument to try to develop their own voice?
Well, it's different. And I mean, in a sense it is. In a way, I'm making this up, but you take the idea of having your own voice. You take Earl, and I'm just an observer. I've never talked to him or read it that much about it. But early on, I assume he was trying to imitate the players that came before him that he was aware of. And he heard something in that appealed to him in a way that nobody else had quite picked up on. And so I'm going to use, if you use the word genius about Earl, it's the fact that he recognized how to create these patterns and where to put notes in it that sounded like the melody, so that you, in the end, you have this melody surrounded by rhythmic harmonic fillers, which are the rolls. And it was his unique take on that ultimately he worked into his style. And I always like to say this is, Earl didn't create what he did in a vacuum. There was this context, and Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys was the context. So being in the context with Bill Monroe and Lester Flatt and Chubby Wise, it would lead him in certain directions. And then later with Lester Flatt, Earl Scruggs, and the Foggy Mountain Boys, that context, took him even farther because he's now one of the leaders of it, and would do things, I would assume, that suited him on his banjo. Where with Monroe, he might have had to, draw back a bit because Monroe was the head artist. So, in a sense, Earl learned everything that he thought he could from previous players and then did his own thing. And that's when you talk to players now, I would say, learn everything Earl did and then, but develop your own voice. And there's a book out called Masters of the Five-String Banjo. And in it has different artists giving just one or two sentence bits of advice, sentence of advice. And they don't go like this, but I'm going to tell it like this. One says, learn everything Earl did. The next one, don't copy anybody. The next one, get all Earl's stuff down. Next one, have your own style. And it's like, it seems contradictory. But what it is, for me, it's two different things. As a student of the banjo, you want to learn everything there is from people who've already traveled that road and figured out a lot of the issues and created a lot of the language that we use. And then after you do that, then you can create your own, but now it's informed by what you do earlier. And so, it's that whole concept of standing on the shoulder of giants. You can do your own thing, but it comes from somewhere else. And so you have to talk about that and, what Earl did and now what you can do. And, in tablature, do you play?
I do, yes, sir.
What do you play?
I play a little bit of everything.
All right.
I do play the banjo.
All right. Well, there's tablature then.
Right.
There's these rolls. And if you write it out just all on open strings, it's all zeros. Well, you can put in your own numbers. You can do that same roll and that's your own thing, And so it's, one hand it's easy, but on the other hand, it's, you spend your whole life trying to plug those numbers in that sound good, satisfying to you, So it's a tricky deal, but that's what art is. It's not, it's nuanced and subtle and sometimes bold, but, you just have to talk about it and explore things and whatnot.
I listened to an interview with John Hartford where he said that his banjo style was built on trying to sound like Earl and failing to do so.
Absolutely.
And I really liked that.
Yeah, no. I totally get it. I tried to sound like Earl, and I never could, and in fact, never really heard anybody that captured it in the way that I thought Earl actually sounded. But I don't think I got it wrong. I just got it different. So.
How do you balance? We're at a sort of a traditional bluegrass camp. How do you balance tradition and innovation in playing the banjo?
Well,
or do you need to balance it?
Well, if you want to, you can. I think there's ways of writing new material that sounds like other people's. They try it all the time. Do you know the name Tom Adams?
Yes, sir. He's
got a tune called Adams County Breakdown. And it's nothing that Earl did, but it's everything that Earl did. You know what I mean? It's unique unto itself, but it sounds like, it could have been an Earl Scruggs thing in a way. So there's still lots of nooks and crannies. Earl didn't do it all. So there's lots of ways still left to do things. So, and balancing it out is, if that feels good to you, and satisfying to an audience, if you want an audience. Some people might play and go, I don't care whether you like this or not. And they go, great, because I don't like it. So I don't know. My approach has always been, I'll figure out the balance, what feels good to me, and that's what I'll do. Whether they feel it's balanced or not, I do. And so I've never ever played in a sense, and I hate even talking about, who's your audience. Well, it's anybody that'll sit and listen, but I don't care whether they like it or not. I hope I play well, but if they don't like what I created, that's them, not me, I think.
It's not about them, it's about what you're creating.
I've never been in this for any other reason than to play music that I feel good about playing. I've tried to play with other people, but I play what I want to play with other people for the most part. I mean, there are times you hired to do something different, but for the most part, I play music because I want to hear it and realize it's me making it. Wow.
What's your, I know you do a lot of teaching. What's your favorite part about teaching?
It's a real thrill when a student kind of gets it, in the sense of they take it and they, oh man, that really makes a lot of sense to me, and I'll do that. It's real frustrating because I have these, I've taught a lot and I've taught better. I knew the longer I teach, the more I have a sense of what is, should be the focus. And when people don't grasp it right away, I think, oh man, I need to find a better way to explain it. And as a teacher, for me, I'm always looking for that magic word that you say the magic word and their eyes go, oh man, and then they go, oh yeah, I hear what you're talking about. So it's just that. And truly, when I say some things that I think are just vital and meaningful for me, I get goosebumps, from teaching, just saying these things. And if they get it, that just doubles it up. But if they don't, I'm still thrilled that I'm said something that seems real at the core of what I'm doing. So it's a fun thing to do, teach. Yeah, I enjoy it.
One of the things that really hooked me into this style of music was the community around it. I really didn't discover it until I was in college, and I sort of fell into a bluegrass jam. How have you seen the community in bluegrass hook people that way?
Well, the bluegrass community, that's a good question. It's somewhere in the genetics of people is a recognition of, I'm going to call it a genuineness, an authenticness about another person. And I had a friend who wrote a song for camps, and it had to do with people coming to camp and having a life-changing experience because they met somebody else at that camp. And so the song he wrote was basically, we didn't mean to change your lives, we only wanted to teach you G, C, and D. Well, what he didn't quite grasp was that G, C, and D, learning G, C, and D can be life-changing. And you take all these people at this camp and all the camps and all the music, they learn G, C, and D, and oh my God, here we go. I'm a part of something. And it's something that I can be that is welcoming to me. It's a very welcoming community. You get into it and you have to do certain things. You have to learn Blue Ridge Cabin Home, and learn the words to these songs and learn the keys that they're supposed to go in, or, if you're a banjo player, you want to try to play it like Earl did it, or, JD, or if you want to throw in a Bill Keith thing, you can do that, but there's certain signals that you have to learn. It's like a tribe, and once you get in it, it's really welcoming and comforting for the most part. There are always, somebody out to be the bluegrass police about it all, but mostly it's just really welcoming and a wonderful place to be. And I had a friend or acquaintance tell me he came from a wealthy neighborhood near Detroit, Michigan. And he said, we weren't wealthy, but all the school I went to, they were all wealthy. And he said, with those people, unless you were wealthy also, there was no way you could be their friend. He said, but I will go down south, and all you have to do is say the word bluegrass, and people invite you over for dinner. You play bluegrass? Man, we're having a jam tomorrow night. Come on over. Well, that would never happen. We're having a pool party tomorrow. You like to swim? Come on over. Wealthy people don't do that, although I don't mean to be down on wealthy people. That was his take on it. But it's just really miraculous how you can travel all over the country, to any part of the country, and say the word bluegrass. And England and Japan and the Czech Republic and Belgium and Holland. And if you can find somebody that knows the word bluegrass, you've got a bed for the night probably. So it's amazing. It's an amazing phenomenon. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
What do you hope that your banjo students this year at camp will learn, will take from you?
Well, one of the things I try to hit on a lot is, you have, as a mandolin or anything, has its limitations. The fingerboard is from here to here, and unless you have an extension or something, basically it's here to here, and there's only really 4 strings. And to have some people say, well, I get above the 5th fret, I don't know what's going on. Well, if you get above the 5th fret, it's the same thing as the first 5 frets, and to have a grasp on how to organize, how the fingerboard is organized, and how you make music on it, and how the same things happen over and over again, just in different locations and whatnot, that you have an expanded view of what's available and how to access it. And so I kind of hit hard, or not hard, but with some different lesson views on that, and how to access them with your finger, and how to access them with your right hand. So those kinds of, to have a new view and a new ear as to what's going on. And I have this thing I like to teach, and I call it playing by ear. But that means a lot of things to a lot of people. It might mean I want to be able to hear what you're doing and find it on the instrument. That's one way. Another way would be I want to be able to hear something, a melody, and find it on my instrument. But it also means, and this is what I talk about, is here are many options, and you're to try them out, and you listen and decide which ones appeal to you. So you're hearing it, you don't conceptualize it and then find it on your instrument. You play on your instrument, and then you make a decision about it. Oh, that sounds good. I didn't know that was going to sound good till I did it. Or it sounds interesting, or, whatever. But that idea but it takes a lot of what I call research and development. So to hopefully open the doors to them being able to do the research and development and identify it with their ear. Oh, that's good. I've heard that before. Or I've never heard that before, but I really like it. I'm going to have to try to remember where that is, and put my fingers there when I want to make that sound. So it's that kind of thing, I think. So I'll say that.
Is there anything else that sort of feels important for you to say, or is there a question that I should have asked you, or?
Oh, not really. It's, playing music is just a really incredibly wonderful thing to do. And it feels real good when you do it. You get to be with other people who like it too. And you want to blend in, you want to listen to the style. You can do lots of things. Can I demonstrate? Guitar players do this all the time. They do that all the time. Well, you listen to Del McCoury, and he does it different. And you listen to Tony Rice, and he may have his own little different thing. And so even though it's this sort of rote thing, you can discover your own little thing about it. Jimmy Martin had a little series of things he did. There's a guy nobody ever talks about named Don McCann, who played guitar with Jim and Jesse. And he would play all these bass, guitar runs in the background. Man, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And it's... He did a G run like that. And I've heard Tony Rice do it, and I go, ha ha, buddy, that Don McCann did it 20 years before that. So, you just look for little unique ways to put your own little thing on it, So that's what I would say. Just, it seems real staid and bound in this one little thing, but there's lots of little ways to do things different. And you go, when I was coming up to play, there was Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs and Jim and Jesse, the Osborne brothers, Reno and Smiley, the Stanley brothers, Country Gentlemen, the Dillards came along. So, there were just handfuls of players, of bands, and every one of them sounded different. I mean, just within 2 notes, sometimes you could tell, or 2 seconds of music, you could tell, oh, that's Reno and Smiley, or that's Jim and Jesse, or whatever. So they were able, and I know there were a lot fewer at the time, but there's ways that you can find to play the music that's different, and you just have to, that's the fun of it, is to find little nooks and crannies of your own. So there you go.